Rail Up, the future mobility podcast with innovators and leaders of the ecosystem. Presented by Sebastian Sperker.
In this episode, I will take you live on stage at the International Rail Safety Conference. This conference is the world's largest event dedicated to exchanging ideas on rail safety and innovation. This year it was held in Vienna and hosted by the ÖBB. I was delighted to lead a panel titled Game-Changing Innovation, Increasing Safety, featuring high-level guests which perfectly aligns with RAILUPPODCAST. So welcome on stage and let's begin with our executive talk. First of all, welcome to the stage, and I also would like to introduce our guests here. Next to Jill, there is Constanze Bannholzer. She is the ÖBB Program Manager for the Digital Automatic Coupling, in short, the DAC. Then we have the Director General of UNIFE, Enno Wiebe. Then we have from the ERA, Head of Safety and Operations, our Bart Aku. Then we have from Wabtec Transit Engineering, Paolo Pilero. And then we have Stefan Kirch, CEO from Nevomo. So welcome to our panel. And basically, I would like to start my conversation by asking you about the perspective about game-changing innovation. And there is one company on the way to change the game, and that's Nevomo in terms of efficiency and safety. So Stefan, let's start with you. Nevomo started with a big vision to transport with the Hyperloop concept without the loop, aiming high-speed passenger travel up to 600 kilometers per hour, and aiming that. And now your first business application is basically on the other section. It's like shunting operation, automatic shunting operation, and basically. The difference is here the propulsion system is coming not from the vehicle, it's coming from the tracks, and this will boost safety and also efficiency. So Stefan, maybe you can just tell us a little bit more about the product on one hand. The second one, what does it mean in terms of safety? And last but not least, what is your experience, because it's in a European company, your process for the institution like ERA or TÜV to homologate also this new vehicle. So,
So first of all, thanks for inviting me. Coming from Hyperloop to shunting operations in industrial environment sounds quite weird, truth be told. But the thing behind this, and I think we've seen it also today, I was joining the sessions this morning, is a lot of these challenges are quite big, and it's the same in Hyperloop. So if you want to build a Hyperloop, you have to build a new network. And if you want to build a new network with a new technology, you need decades. We've seen it with ERTMS rollout. This takes until, 2050 or whatever. So the problem to be solved is how to eat an elephant. And the answer is quite easy. You slice him in slices, and then you can eat him. And this is what we've done at Nevomo. So a Hyperloop has basically four components. It's a vacuum tube. We left it out for now because this is a blocking element to come to a network. And we made the other three components compatible with existing railways. So as Sebastian already spoiled, we are using magnetic propulsion systems. So inside of the rails, in between the rails, on top of the sleepers, we install a magnetic linear motor. It's the same like in a maglev or in an Hyperloop system. It looks a bit like a magnetic carpet, creating magnetic wave. On the edges of the sleepers, we install a levitation system, and then instead of trains, we would use pods, which are basically smaller trains. And then on the same system, as this is designed to be compatible, you could have the same, like classic railways, and fancy levitating pods. That is a big vision. But as we are a small startup, we are now 50 people based in Europe. We needed a product which is closer to railways, so for a slice of the elephant to eat it. And this is basically just using the linear motor propulsion system and a retrofit of existing railways. This is what we call Maglev Booster. So this is a self-propelled freight wagon just by a magnetic wave. So we're creating the magnetic wave, and the magnetic wave is basically pulling the wagon on the existing infrastructure. And then it's a bit like Lego. So you add more stones, and you can start small and then grow big into the network. And then at the end, there might be a levitation. There might be a Hyperloop if you then all wrap it up into like a vacuum tube. This is how it would look like. But hard to basically understand without any pictures. So maybe we can see the video now, because you can see it basically on our test track. It's a classic railway infrastructure. and we'll see it moving. And then I can talk about homologation and such after the video. So this is the principle again, active part in the infrastructure, magnetic carpet, a retrofit underneath the wagon, like a counterpart, so magnetic wave and a surfboard. And then the wagon here runs without any propulsion on the wagon, fully automated, fully electrified, no catenary, no loco driver and anything. In the middle you see the magnetic stator. It's still the prototype. We will now industrialize it. And on the magnetic levitation, it's passive levitation. That means it starts on wheels. And at a certain speed, we pass a threshold where it begins to levitate. So we can always drop on wheels, passing any switch, go to any logistics zone and such. And here at 80 kilometers, now the wheels are up in the air, levitating on the existing infrastructure. As you can see, it's a standard infrastructure, standard gauge, nothing special about it. We just added components. So it's like a full retrofit. The second part of the question was on homologation and how we basically cooperate here with the authorities. Yeah, there were quite some talks. And first question, interestingly, was about like, what is this? Is this a rail? Is this a maglev? Is it a plane? And what kind of rules do we have to follow? And this is a good question. And we decided basically to be a railway, which make some stuff easier because there's a lot of experts for railways. You have a lot of authorities, a lot of consultants that could help you. But the rules are quite tough. And technically, you have seen it. If somebody is from ERA or EBA, like lifting the wheels up in the air is technically a derailment. So like we basically try to prove that a derailment could be as safe as classical railways. And you can imagine this is quite hard and will take some while. That's why we also start like with a classic system on wheels, but using already some of the components out of the system. Yeah. So slicing an elephant is basically what we do. Yeah.
Okay, slicing an elephant, then let's talk about another elephant, because if we talk about shunting, obviously we have to talk about one of the major projects in Europe. We talk about the DAC, the digital automatic coupling. And as this is one of the most important innovation projects in rail freight, Constanze, I would ask yourself, like, there is a lot of expectation into the project in terms of efficiency and safety. And my question to you, is this the game-changing technologies in Europe, and is this statement accurate that this will be a game-changing technology?
So thank you very much, Sebastian, for this question. Actually, I'm quite surprised, but in a positive manner, that the digital automatic coupling was already this morning mentioned several times, and actually it was also in terms of deployment and how this could be set up. So my answer is obviously yes, but I would like to elaborate a little bit on this. For example, I would say that it must be market-driven and user-oriented. So it must be wanted by the sector. And what we see with the digital automatic coupling is, I mean, we have not 100% complete acceptance by the sector, but we have a broad acceptance. We have railway undertakings, infrastructure managers, and we are collaborating also with industry. And therefore, I think this is an indicator that it's quite important. The digital automatic coupler for us is also, from a BB perspective, I must say, one of the key elements on innovation that is tackling the main challenges we see. So we are faced with a limited network capacity. We are also not offering always our customers the service they wish that we would like to bring to them. And we are also dominated by manual interventions. And therefore, the digital automatic coupler, directly or as an enabler, because we heard also at the presentation of Gilles that we must come to the FDFDO system, full digital freight train operation, even though he doesn't like the word DAC. It's okay, no, not everybody needs to like it. And therefore, I would also say, yes, this is a question, your question I can answer with yes. I think also innovation doesn't always need to be new. So Europe is the last continent who is not on a broad scale operating the automatic coupling. There were past attempts, they weren't successful in the 60s, 70s or 90s. However, we could be the first continent implementing the digital part of the coupling system in the 21st century. And therefore, this is another reason why I would say naming it as a game-changing technology is more than accurate. And one more point I would like to make is the human factor. It was also pointed out in the morning several times, and this is also a topic that we try to respect from the beginning when we have been working in the project on a European level. So involving the workers' perspective into the development of the technology, having iterative cycles where we are seeing if they also like the options in terms of handling. So how do we operate it? So what is their preference? So this is of utmost importance. And last but not least, when we are talking about innovation, also for the digital automatic coupler, we must think about how we are going to implement the system. Was also pointed out by Mark Topal already, and here we are doing a good exercise in terms of that we started early, asking the question, how should we implement it? I'm not saying that all questions are already answered, and I think there's also limitations that we need to reflect in the implementation of the system. However, coming back to your initial question, I would say yes, it's accurate, and I would be also interested in other opinions.
Okay, thank you very much, Constanze. And we're talking about the duck, we're talking about wagon. So, Jill, like the question to you, like we heard the importance from Constanze about the duck and the scale, but do you see from the perspective of a wagon keeper point of view, like what is your perspective? I think we all ask the question actually, who is paying at the end of the day for this innovation? And beside the duck, because the duck is like mentioned very often, can you give us also some insight on what other innovations are driven by your members?
Let's start with the end of your question. Yep. All the elements which are developed today in terms of innovation for freight wagons are linked to a demand of customers. That's what Matt said. If someone install automatic claps for charging, decharging, that's because there is a need from the customer side. And there are many different innovation also in the way we conceive the fleet in modular systems. So there is a lot of things which are happening in collaboration with shippers and people who have the freight. And then I come back to your question, who pays at the end? They pay. It's always the shippers. They pay the wagon keeper, the infrastructure, the RU. And when they cannot cover all the costs, the state is paying the rest. I didn't mention it in my presentation, but I said Germany, France, and Poland have the most of the ton kilometers in Europe. If you look at Germany, DB Netzagentur publishes some statistic on the cost and on the performance, financial speaking, of the railway undertaking. And for I take DB Cargo out for political reason, for all the others, on ton kilometers in Germany, it's minus 0.01 cent per ton kilometer. That's our financial performance on 125 billion ton kilometers. So who pays? At the end, it will be the shippers. At the end, it will be the state if we're not able to perform correctly. And that's why I was saying we need to embrace new realities. We need to have a system in which we can at least all together earn money. Otherwise, we cannot increase modal share, increase safety whatsoever, because we cannot afford it. As simple as that.
But the second part of the question was also, beside the DAC, which innovation is also followed by your members?
I mean, beside the DAC, what is indeed crucial is the use of data. So, we all speak about, yes, we can install sensors, we can install whatsoever, wayside monitoring. Yeah, that's nice. And then you generate tons, billions of, how do you use them? You mentioned the software is key. Yes, the software and to develop the idea how to use the data. It's good to have data and to have digitalization, but you need also to invest a little bit in how can we use those data to make things better, let's say, safer at the end. And here, a lot still needs to be done, and also on harmonization. Wayside monitoring is a good example. There are also projects, I know ÖBB is very much involved. We as well heard harmonization of diagnostic analysis, because it brings nothing to a wagon keeper or a railway undertaking to get data from an infrastructure manager's own national rules, which are different from the other country. You cross the border, and once the hot axle box is 40 degrees and the next one is 60 degrees. So what do you do with that? When do you decide it's an hot axle box? So here, on managing the data, developing the software and the artificial intelligence as well, which goes with that, that's a big investment point for the moment.
Yeah. So we're coming also to the topic of data, and there is a second topic which I hear quite frequently. It's about also the sharing the data in order to enable much more players, like stakeholders in the market, really to use them. But if we talk about the innovation part, I would like to come to you. What is your experience as authority? Which challenges do you see in relation to innovation?
Maybe two challenges and still one concern. So I think the first challenge, it was already mentioned this morning, is to really see the railway system for the socio-technical system it is. So if we introduce technological innovations, that we look at how it will be used, that we integrate from the beginning the view of the operator. It also means that we should not only look at the endpoints. I mean, there will be degraded modes that need to be considered. Also, the migration towards this end position is very important because it introduces a different type of risks, specifically for the operators. It also has advantages looking at it like this, because innovation does not stop just with technology, or you could use technology also to support operators, to support training of operators, to do monitoring. And I think it was Mr. Mata who said this morning, thinking about workflows or changing workflows to improve safety. That's an organizational change that I'll also consider this as innovation. So I would like to see the sector thinking a bit wider than just pure technology. The second challenge is that I see is we need to know what we authorize, if we authorize. Product safety is a prerequisite for operational safety, but it's not the same. So we need to reflect on what it is that we authorize, and with new innovations, things like artificial intelligence, learning systems, there might not be just that endpoint of a development that we call authorization now. So I think we need to reflect on how we can maybe see the idea of insurance safety as an intermediate step that needs to be followed by elements of monitoring, probably real-time monitoring or analysis of data like Jill mentioned. So that's definitely a second challenge. Then my concern, also related to Jill, it's the patchwork. If I look at how safety is implemented, for instance, throughout Europe, we have an awful lot of different levels of maturity. And that, I think also there we need to think about how we can use technological innovation to get a more level playing field there and to improve safety throughout Europe.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I can just agree on that, because like when I started also my conversation to explain railway, sometimes it's Europe, at least there is the theme of the European Union, united in diversity, and that's something which you have the feeling in terms of norms sometimes if you see the countries. And you know, based on your experience, you had already various roles in an engineering background, and you work for another UNIFE. What have been, in your opinion, the biggest achievement in safety and innovation over the past 5 to 10 years?
That's a challenging question for a representative body sitting next to the agency. So thanks for the challenge. I would like to respond to what Bart said. I would see this a little bit more positive, actually, what we have achieved. For me, the big achievements actually began with the implementation of the fourth railway package's technical pillar, with the new Railway Safety Directive, with ERA as one-stop shop in particular for safety certification. It's a safety conference. I would drop the VA part. I think that a lot has been achieved here. Just to mention the discussions on the common safety methods, the common safety targets, the common safety indicators, all these things that have been developed. exchange of safety-related information. It was a tough discussion. I think it both cost us some gray hair, some extra gray hair, actually. But I think we have achieved something here, and I think this is something very good. We still need to move on with CSMA, SLP implementation, as well as the setup of the tool, the electronic tool or the IT tool for the exchange of safety-related information. One important thing, of course, for the rail supply industry, and this is what I would like to, because I was very passionate about this topic, is the Joint Network Secretariat, where we, after accidents and incidents, came together, exchanged, of course, not repeating the role of the NIBs, the National Investigation Bodies, but really to see how can we improve, how can we prevent NSAs to come up with national rules, and as rail supply industry to learn from it in terms of the design for vehicles, but for the rail operating community as well, to improve operations or to increase the safety level. In terms of innovation, what you have asked, just to repeat it, and I'm still digesting the question from the first panel, actually, what is the added value, or what is the advantage of safety or for safety for ERTMS? This has shocked me a little bit. I think we should take it back and perhaps further explain it, that ERTMS is actually for both safety and interoperability. Constanze, you mentioned DUC. I will not repeat it again, but last but not least, the monitoring. So I think the big achievements is actually that we have a quite good legal framework. We still need to improve it here and there. We might not like the fees and charges very much, but the rest, I think, is a quite good and sound framework. And now it's up to the rail supply industry, of course, to deliver the necessary products and the rail operating community to further improve the safety level and the performance.
Okay, thank you. It's good to hear that we are progressing as an ecosystem and that we have to learn. And in terms of learning, Paolo, what I'm quite interested in, safety is, we know, important, but especially important also in public transport. And at the same time, we see there are a lot of innovations. So in major cities already in Europe, you can see autonomous trains and metros running. And if you compare this to rail freight in Europe, you might have the feeling there are two different worlds. So how you see or can explain like this big gap in innovation in terms between public transport and rail freight?
Fully right. We have two different systems, the passenger system and the freight system. The technological gap between these two systems somehow is enormous. But we need as well to demystify a bit this situation. Why I'm saying this? Around the world, there are freight trains which operate autonomously. That's happening in Australia, it's happening in the US, might happen here as well. The difference is the ecosystem. So over there it's possible, maybe here it's not possible, maybe here that's not the right innovation. The locomotive we use in the freight traffic in Europe, these are technological jewels. This is the peak of the technology. They use the same technology we see on passenger train. So here the freight system has really developed quite a lot. Where we have not moved is on the freight wagons. The wagons are piece of iron on wheel today. And of course, we can talk about efficiency, how much we gain with that, but I want to come to another point, which is for me much more important. What is the safety level of these components? We can do all the test procedure we want, but you look at data, in Europe we still have a lot of derailment, and the freight derailment are 10 times higher than passenger derailment. Why? No sensor, no anti-slide. Basic mistake could cause a derailment, which could result in a fire, or what happened last week in Milano. A train freight derailed, it lost a container, a passenger train arrived, and by pure coincidence, nobody has been injured. So all this can be really solved with basic technology that we are bringing for the passenger world. Needless to say that we have people operating in a yard in very, very complicated situation. So they are following a precise rule, there are a lot of operational rules, but when you operate into the burn rectangle to couple and uncouple two freight wagons, a simple mistake, a simple distraction could cause your life. That's why we needed to step away a bit from this financial mindset, how much is going to cost me the digital coupler or the digital train, and think about how much is going to preserve life, improve safety, and how much this is going to improve the cost of the freight system. That's why I'm looking forward for this program. We are all inside. We have a lot of participation by industry, wagon keepers, wagon builders, operators, and I hope that we will have soon a legislation and rules to certify this system, and then we will have the right migration plan to start this FDFTO program.
Okay, thank you very much. But coming a little bit thinking outside the box or outside our planet, Matt, you worked for Elon Musk's SpaceX and almost for 1 decade, where safety, I guess, plays also quite an important role in space, especially if it comes to space travel. So what are your insights on the difference between safety regulation between space and the rail industry? Are both industries really open for innovation? What is your take?
I think, frankly speaking, innovation is a bit more challenging in rail because it has so much inertia. There's so much that's been accommodated as existing practices and standards that it is, frankly, more difficult to change, and because the interoperability is a big factor too. But in aerospace, generally speaking, every mission is assumed to be unique, and so there's much less of a assumption of commonality or legacy built upon prior technologies. And maybe that is an efficiency opportunity for the aerospace industry as it still continues to develop and mature. It's by comparison much more of a frontier industry than rail. But at the end of the day, you have a mission and you want to assure mission success and manage your risks. And not all space missions have human life involved, but that is happening more often right now. As you can imagine, doing something like rendezvousing a space capsule with the International Space Station, there's a lot that can go wrong with that. And the framework is not all that different from what we see in certain geos. And that's another thing I'll highlight is rail is not, as much as there is commonly accepted standards and practices, it is not monolithic. There are definitely geographic differences in how safety and new technologies are accommodated. But the high-level framework is to understand the risks at hand. How does the technology work? What are the hazards that may manifest? What are the causes of those hazards? And what are the controls that we can put in place against those hazards or causes? And controls do not have to be technology too. I want to be incredibly clear about that. It's not just the technology, it's also the operational practices. How do we treat this technology? How do we incorporate it into our workflows? And those controls are only as good as your ability to verify that they work. And so that's where a lot of new technology that is safety critical, so much of that development is testing, analysis, just this long cycle where you have to create that body of work. You have to have this objective assessment of does this technology work? What is the safety narrative? Can it be defended? Often independently reviewed and assessed. And that's what I spent. It was 13 years at SpaceX, working a lot with NASA, the Federal Aviation Administration, and also the U.S. Air Force on questions like this. We also developed autonomous flight termination system so that we could improve our launch cadence by not being tied to legacy radar assets to track the launch vehicle and make sure it was on the right trajectory. We had an onboard system that would self-patrol that. And that's a lot of those lessons, a lot of the experiences, what we brought to Parallel and how we think about the technology, how we work with our partners, the railroads and regulators, on building that safety case.
Okay, so and there is one question, obviously, what I'd like to ask Matt. Sometimes it's like, what is more easier, flying to Mars or running autonomous rail cars?
We joke about this, but I'm going to be really disappointed if we put a person on Mars before we see a technology like this deployed commercially. And we have to work together to make sure that doesn't happen. But it is a real hurdle to change what's already out there. And we get that. It's not just an attitude. It's also, there are financial challenges of changing a system that works. It's a delicate maneuver to keep things operating, continue providing the services, don't disrupt other operations, and introduce new technology. But there's no breakthroughs required in what we're developing. Technically speaking, it's a lot easier.
Okay. Challenge accepted. I think we're in the room, we are willing to push that. So coming also to the second question, because I do at least understand our business as people business, right? So because people behind it drives our business. So I would be interested, what motivates you to join the rail ecosystem and where you get the energy to continuously improve it, because I think we can all agree here it's sometimes a quite endurance race or journey if we want to change something. So Paolo, let's start with you. What brought you actually in industry? Because you're working for almost your entire professional career for one company. So what does a company need to offer to make a talent like yourself to stay for more than 2 decades?
You make me feel old.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Pure coincidence. I started to work in this company because a friend was working here. He called me after the university. And basically when I started, I was hating train. Train was my worst nightmare. I was commuting 2 hours a day on a train, and that was my life nightmare at the university. So then I started, and step by step, I fell in love with the system. I really fell in love with the complexity of the train, the complexity of the infrastructure of a train operator. And today I'm still here, 23 years on the job, 23 years in this industry. A lot of challenges, one after the other. You see that every year is different than the other one. My first job has been here in Austria with the diesel locomotive by Siemens. And at the end, after 23 years, I still see a lot of challenges coming. I welcome a lot these new startups which are coming to the industry, helping us a bit to shake the landscape and bring new ideas and new technology to challenge the old dinosaurs that are still here in the company.
Okay, thank you very much. So Enno, what is your favorite part of your job? So what excites you every day?
Good question. After 100 days in the new job, perhaps we meet again in 1,000 days, and then my answer might be different. At the moment, I would say what excites me is actually it's the excitement, or it's the joy and the challenge at the same time. So for me, and that is was the previous intervention, is actually the complexity of the topics. I really like it. So you have FRMCS for breakfast, then you have DAC for lunch, and then you close for supper with public procurement. So this is really the complexity, managing the complexity, understanding the complexity, as well as understanding, of course, the interfaces. But there is one very important thing I would like to mention, and that is, of course, the personal relationships in the sector. So you see quite a lot of us here on the panel who've been working together for a lot of years together in a very good spirit. We do not always necessarily agree, but it's a very good spirit, and I think that helps a lot to bring things forward. It's a kind of family, actually. I think that is very particular for this sector. And of course, it is the people that have an impact on you. Just want to mention, and that is still my leitmotif, it was Mark Topal in one of my meetings in my previous position, when Mark Topal took the floor and said, why are we discussing all this? Does it bring any added value? Does it bring money? Or does it bring any transport value? If the answer is no, then skip the talk. And this is really my leitmotif, and I would like to say it is really the good spirit, and it's the people who have an impact on you.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe we should skip something and focus on innovation. So Constanze, you also work already for almost 10 years in the ecosystem of rail at, very proud at Rail Cargo Group. So what excites you still in the industry after 10 years?
Yeah, actually, it was not prepared in terms of our answers, I must say, but I'm also fascinated about the complexity, because when I entered the rail freight business, and it was actually the rail freight business, I was fascinated about intermodal transport, combined transport, and I wanted to dig deeper into the topic. And what I'm also very much confident about is that I truly believe that with the work I'm doing, I mean, obviously I'm not doing it alone, I'm doing it together with a lot of people, in case it comes to the implementation phase, would have a significant positive impact. So with the implementation of the enabler, the digital automatic coupling, we might see the possibility to have more volumes on rail and have a shift from road to rail. And obviously, I mean, we saw it. We had the floodings in the last couple of days. This has a positive impact on climate objectives that have been set. So I truly believe that the work we are doing here has high value. And also what I really love is the people. The persons I've been working with, they are all very intensively working, contributing a lot of efforts. And this is something where I can say I admire a lot of people. And this is why I chose also to took this path. And I'm confident in continuing the work in the rail freight business.
Okay, great, Constanze. So then let's talk to someone who is comparatively quite fresh in the ecosystem of rail, Matt. So you worked for most of the one of the most remarkable companies on the planet, actually. So what motivated you actually to found like a rail tech company, and are you still convinced that this was the right move?
I think the jury's still out on that one. But I think, honestly, I'm just a glutton for punishment, and I'm attracted to really hard problems. And it's not just in this case the technology, but it's change management. The technology is actually relatively easy. It's about how to introduce something like this into something, as I said earlier, it has a lot of inertia. It's not the technology, it's operations, it's people. And there are a lot of great people in this industry, and that's one of the things I've enjoyed the most. But our team back at home, too, we're all excited by the mission, about what this can be, what this can transform.
Great. So basically, when we talk about employer branding, we should just make this panel here so that then a lot of people will join like the ecosystem. And if we talk about organizations like the ERA, so Bart, my question would be like, also do organizations adapt themselves in the terms of what changed actually the last 10 years at the ERA about the approach to deal with new people, to embrace innovation? Is there also a change what you can see?
So the change I've seen, if I look at the agency over the last years, that we were initially focusing on legislation, paper. And I agree with Enno. I believe the existing system, and I'm talking about the railway safety framework, is sound, is stable, but we see a patchwork of maturity in implementation. So I'm very happy that we're still working on it, but we've changed the mindset of the agency from pure legislation into trying to support all stakeholders with an adequate implementation of this legislation. And I'm very happy to see that also the sector has changed, because Enno, even with motivation, was strongly in favor of sharing information, sharing incident data, promoting the new CSM on ASLP. That was not like that 5 or 10 years ago. So I think it's a collective change that I've seen in the sector that actually, I believe, can drive safety in the future.
Okay, sounds good. And yeah, also Stefan, one question to you, because like at least if you talk to German railway experts, you have the feeling that most of them coming from DB. And so as you as well, Stefan. So basically you worked also quite long for DB, and then you decided to enter to a startup like Nivomo. I mean, how come?
Yeah, I just learned that there's even like a word for it now coming from DB. It's in German. It's called like a person with roter Vergangenheit. Yeah, so a person with red history because of the brand color. Matt, DB is red. Yeah, so I was lucky within Deutsche Bahn for nearly 15 years. So I had the chance like to grow huge teams, sales team. I was leading the department, being the head of sales at DB Netz for most of my career, like growing all these key account managements, joining these new incumbents, joining the market, like growing from 0 to hero to 40% in the German market, and a lot of also digitalization stuff. But what always came to my mind, I was also joining such conference like today, is that the topics don't change, just the deployment times change. So I was more and more convinced that working inside of such a huge corporation, I will never be at the edge, basically where the cool stuff will happen. This is always outside in the smaller startups. And I gave it a last chance. I had an own startup inside of Deutsche Bahn for the last 2 years. We tried to grow a new intermodal operator, some cool stuff, but a story maybe for the gala dinner. And it failed, not because the business case was bad or the technology was crap, just by politics. And that was a moment in time when I, for me, decided basically to leave Deutsche Bahn, and I communicated a bit in my network. And the next day, I got a call from a former management board member of Deutsche Bahn, and he asked me "Oh, Stefan, you could be the right person to join a Hyperloop company." And I said "Are you crazy? Hyperloop is stupid. Nobody needs it. We have 300,000 kilometers of railways in Europe. So do your crap alone." He said no, do it. And I owed him a favor. So basically, I made a call with the original founder team, the 3 engineers and that investment banker that founded Nevomo back then. And that was not just 15 minutes. We talked, I think, for 2 hours. And then the one night afterwards, I wasn't able to sleep because there were so many answers to all the questions that I had. And that was 3 years ago. And now we made it to big partnerships with SNCF, Deutsche Bahn, RFI in Italy, Duisport as a port partner. We will announce the first commercial deal, probably on InnoTrans if we still sign it this week. If not, then in 3 or 4 weeks, because it's nearly closed, more the formal stuff. And if I would have tried to do the same inside of Deutsche Bahn, I think it would have taken another 15 years of my lifetime. So I think it was a good decision, at least for me, to leave Deutsche Bahn. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. But basically, also your quote would be really that rail tech companies such as Nevomo and Parallel is needed in order also to boost basically the industry. Yeah. Good. Thank you very much for these insights. For the remaining time being, I would like to ask you for a speed round for the following questions. In one word, what is required for innovation in our ecosystem? And who will start?
I still have the mic, but I'm not following the rules. I will give you 2 words. Not just one. I would say passion and ignorance.
Okay.
I like the ignorance. Yes, yes. I like the ignorance because if you know, then you block yourself. That's a good word.
I would say a holistic view, or as it was called this morning, an integrated approach to safety.
I would follow Bart's approach, actually, to come together, in particular in the light of now the successor of ERGU, really to come together to build up something together and really to look what we really need.
I would say also not one word, but thinking as early as possible on the requirements for system integration when working on innovative products.
Okay, Jill?
You didn't ask me the question why I was in rail.
Oh, I forgot, and now...
And I know why.
Okay.
Because when you have listened to Matt, there is only one reason why we can all work in rail still today, after SpaceX and so on. We are all masochists. Otherwise, we will change the industry. Family, complexity. Personally, I love change management, and I love to bring solution and have 100 or 1,000 experts explaining me why it will never work in railways. Either it's cheap, doesn't work, or it's simple, doesn't work. That's our mentality. And we have, in fact, a diamond, and you know how diamond looks like when you take them out with a legacy, and we need to shape it. And that's the last word on the second question. What we need is courage. We need to have a little bit of courage to deviate from the text we've written 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago and try the new. I think that's something which rail freight especially need.
Okay, so Gilles, sorry that I dropped the message. So basically was prepared that you started in St. Gallen. So when you decided to go to the ecosystem, but thank you for your answer. So Matt.
I think one of the most core things is you have to have a very objective, deep understanding of the problem. Like, what is the problem? And be obsessed with it, about defining what it really is, asking why, and get to the real heart of it. Because once you have that fundamental, you have that model, I find innovation solutions become much easier to identify when you really know what you're trying to solve. And I was going to use the word optimism, but I think courage is actually better. But it is optimism and courage. Like, it's so easy to get dragged down in the what ifs and, well, here's all the things that could go wrong. I forget who to credit said this earlier today. It's like we have to try. Like, not trying is the worst thing we could do. It's okay to fail as long as we are trying to solve the right problems and we are holding a high bar for competence and safety. Like, we have to try, and it's okay for not everything to work out.
Okay, thank you. So I would add like one word, it's brave. I think we also need to be brave to try, to fail, and then to keep on doing it. So I think we talked a lot about digitalization, about innovation technologies and safety. And in the context of these opportunities, we also have to understand, and that's my quote, is basically that safety is also a very a driver for efficiency. And we also can agree that we are people's business, and I think what we need is the right mindset, because we talked about the whole transformation must be done, and technology is not always the answer of everything. It must be in combination with the people, with the mindsets, and I think it's up on us. Yeah, I think to change the mindset, to bring the right people into the ecosystem. And I mean, I think the audience could agree that the right mindset is already on the panel here, but I really have to think we have to do it, bring it outside the world. And I still believe, and I hope you agree with me, that if we really want to change, we can change the game. We can change the game to better, and we can change the game for the railway in Europe. So I have to say thank you for the great panel discussion. Thank you, Matt and Gilles, for the presentation, and also Constanze and Bart, sorry, and Paolo and Stefan for having this insightful discussion. And I think a warm applause from the audience. Yeah. And thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you for your insights. Sebastian, just stay with me on stage for a second. In your introduction, you mentioned that you are hosting your very own podcast called Rail Up, if I just know that right. So what if I would have a very innovative technological device, approach, process, whatever it is, how can I approach you to discuss my innovation in your podcast? Or can I actually?
Yes, of course you can. And very simple, just write me an email on LinkedIn or a message. So I'm very open to see, especially globally, new innovations in rail. And this is basically something which inspires me a lot to write to this, to talk to these inspiring people, to exchange and share innovation. And I think that's the mission, what we should do in the ecosystem to shape it into better.
Mm-hmm. And where can we listen in? Where is it available? On Spotify?
Everywhere, on all the platforms. Everywhere. And yeah, with the advertisement on RAILUP.club is the homepage. So thank you very much for mentioning that. Okay,
great.
Thank you very much.
This is your applause. Thank you, Sebastian Sperker, for guiding us through the session.
What's the takeaway from this episode?
My key takeaway is while technology is essential, the right mindset is equally crucial to embrace change and foster innovation. We heard that the modal shift in transportation is not growing as expected, even though we understand the main challenges, so it's time for action. Additionally, we learned that safety is a foundational pillar of the ecosystem and that it can also drive efficiency. This makes it clear that safety and efficiency are deeply interconnected. However, what is not interconnected are the norms, timelines and investments across the countries of Europe, which contradicts the vision of a single European railway area. I was truly impressed by the mindsets of my guests. Despite their diverse experiences and approaches, they all share a common goal, shaping the rail ecosystem for the better. And that, in a sense, captures the spirit of Rail Up.
This podcast connects innovators and leaders worldwide to shape the future ecosystem of rail. Rail Up by Sebastian Sperker.